by Ken Catchpole, Australia takes the field at Sydney Cricket Ground for the first rugby union test played in this country against Ireland. Visitors captain Tom Kiernan is making his 33rd test appearance. Kicking off, Ireland follows on as Teetsel fields the ball. A quick heel from the ruck retains possession for the light-jerseyed Australians. Hawthorn kicks for touch to set the pattern of the match. Ireland are superior in the lineouts, but they too indulge in a great deal of kicking, hampering open play anticipated by the crowd of over 32,000. Australia bustle Ireland's inside backs. Gibson fumbles and Hawthorn intercepts to dash clear. A well-timed pass and Brass looks dangerous. On to Rose, but Gibson takes him from behind, smothering the ball as the Australian crosses the line. Referee Dr. Roger Vanderfield disallows the try, ruling Rose failed to ground the ball. Winning the scrums, Ireland take the initiative as Sherry gets his back line moving. Centre Jerry Walsh is away and goes in for the first try. Kiernan converts, giving Ireland a half-time lead of 5-0. On the resumption, slow motion shows Australia launching a constructive attack. Lock forward John O'Gorman dispatches a long pass to winger Stuart Boyce, but Boyce fumbles and the alert Mike Gibson takes the ball through on the toe to gain valuable ground for Ireland. In Australia's territory, Kennedy wins another scrum for the visitors, and Kiernan coolly snaps a field goal to notch up his century of points in test matches in his 8th year as an international. Ireland hammer Australia's weakening defence, and Brophy follows the ball through for what he thinks is a try. His delight is short-lived as the try is disallowed to Brophy's utter amazement. In command, Ireland maintain pressure, storming Australia's stronghold, and the Wallabies appear unable to hold them off. Test newcomer Richard Howe is easily grounded by Duggan as Davis comes up in support. Davis fails to gather, and again Ireland take it through on the toe. Gathering cleanly, McGrath goes in to score as Ireland win 11-5.
And I have very much pleasure in officially opening Fox Movietone Studios.
With those words from the then Customs Minister Frank Ford, your Movietone newsreel was officially born. The date, October 1931. And looking back 35 years, we've built up quite a family album. Among our souvenirs, our first camera trucks. And from Joseph Scullin, the first political speech ever recorded on film in Australia.
I welcome very cordially the opportunity extended to me through the medium of Fox Movietone News to address a message to the people of all countries of the world.
Our gallery of Prime Ministers is really worth a glimpse, from the fiery little Billy Hughes to his successor Stanley Bruce, later Viscount Bruce of Melbourne. Then there was Joseph Lyons. Prominent among Labour leaders, John Curtin. And one of the most revered, Ben Chifley, who toured Japan after the war, seeing A-bomb devastation at first hand. In Canberra, a boyish-looking Governor-General-to-be, Richard Casey, in company with Robert Menzies. And so to Prime Minister Harold Holt, recently seen for himself in Vietnam. But back in the 30s, those bright red Movietone wagons chased the news. Few traffic problems. Cherchez la Femme was keenly played by all our cameramen, leaving us this record of beauty and sex appeal. Our cameras have captured the faces of pioneers of the air like Sir Charles Kingsford Smith, whose exploits with Charles Ulm and others laid foundations in history. Of the go-it-alone breed of airmen, Bert Hinkler. Disaster, 1931, the ill-fated vessel Malabar runs aground at Long Bay, eventually to break up in a storm, fortunately without loss of human life. Uncontrollable bushfires ravaged Victoria in 1939 and New South Wales Blue Mountains in 1957. Movietone's cameramen risked their lives to record the eruption of Mount Lamington, which claimed 4,000 lives. Death for cattle in 1952 in the wake of Australia's worst drought this century to that time. Sensation at Sydney Airport as Movietone captures exclusive motion pictures of the departure of Mrs. Petrov, later to be granted political asylum with her husband. As much to be dreaded as fire and famine, flood as the town of Maitland in 1955 is beleaguered in a muddy causes millions of dollars damage. On the side, sport has claimed our attention from Larwood and the great bodyline controversy to one of the greatest ring-getters in cricketing history, Donald Bradman. From the sport of kings, the great Jim Pike, and perhaps the world's greatest jockey, the Demon Darb, Darby Munro. The first Australian to gain a world title, bantamweight champ Jimmy Carruthers, and one of our greatest male athletes, Herb Elliott. Acclaimed as one of the greatest women athletes in the world, our super swimmer, Dawn Fraser. Another winner of a string of gold medals, Betty Cuthbert. Jack Brabham, 3 times world champion racing driver, and among our favourite shots, the Conrad's kids, John and Ilse. We found them before they ever won a title. To repeat ourselves, Lou Hode and Ken Rosewall as juniors with Davis Cup fame still in the future. Among Movietone's most famous pictures to be shown around the world, this spectacular fall at the Melbourne show. The Powder Puff Derby in Adelaide, and the miraculous escape of driver Mrs. Beryl Drummond. At Westmead Speedway, a tragic second-by-second record of the death of champion driver Jeff Freeman. At the showground, Lady Luck is kinder to Brian Canine. Exclusive Movietone footage of perhaps the most spectacular accident ever filmed as 2 Beaufort bombers collide in mid-air with the loss of both crews. As we said, it's quite a family album, and this brief glimpse mirrors the people and events of 35 years. We at Movietone are proud of our birthday, but even more proud that we can continue to bring the events of our time exclusively to your motion picture screen.
Glenfield Road in the outer Sydney suburb of the same name has been the scene of a siege that's made world news. For 8 days, heavily armed Wally Mellish, his wife Beryl and her baby Leslie have held a force of New South Wales police at bay in one of the state's most unusual real-life dramas. Apart from those in the house, key figures in the case are Commissioner Allen, CIB Superintendent Ferguson and prison padre Peyton, who married the besieged couple during the early days of the impasse. The police commissioner has come under heavy criticism for supplying a deadly Armalite rifle to Mellish. Police headquarters on the spot have been set up in a home next to the Mellish house, and the only visitors allowed, those likely to help end the siege without bloodshed, including Mellish's father. On the 8th day, and after nearly 3 hours of telephone conversations with Mellish, Commissioner Allen and Superintendent Ferguson see an end in sight. All power had been off in the besieged house for 4 days, and with food supplies also low, police are confident the end is near as they move in to wait the peaceful surrender of the trio. First to appear is Wally Mellish, carrying the baby, apparently none the worse for the ordeal. Mellish is unarmed and is escorted to the on-the-spot police headquarters, followed by his wife Beryl. An uneventful climax to what began as a gun battle developed subsequently into the world's most unusual wedding, honeymoon and rearmament arrangement, and ended as a pat on the back for the police. A peaceful conclusion to the case of Sydney's strangest stay-puts.
Summer brings flies, and flies bring disease. This is man's enemy highly magnified, but it's impossible to magnify the danger of flies. Hundreds of millions of microorganisms flourish on a fly's body and legs. The insects carry them from garbage tips and cesspools to the inside of your home. Each female fly lays about 120 eggs at a time, and she may breed more than once in her lifetime. Here is a fly being born. Many of mankind's deadliest enemies are found among the 876 species of flies, gnats and mosquitoes. On these legs and inside and outside the body, the housefly can carry typhoid, tuberculosis, polio and other diseases. Throughout the world, including Australia, scientists are trying to beat the menace. There is constant research to improve insecticides. In the laboratories, the flies to be used in tests are first separated into different species. Later, they'll be separated by sexes too and put in special selection boxes. This is research which could save countless human lives and could stop the spread of disease which could cripple tens of thousands more. It's an all-out war on flies and a war that must be won. In this research, flies are separated into sexes. Every female fly killed can mean thousands more flies not born. This is an atomizer, a laboratory apparatus designed to test the knockout effect of insecticides on one fly and many flies. How effective will the insecticide be against a big concentration of insects? These tests will find out. When the scientist has placed a predetermined number of flies in the test apparatus, the atomizers will be activated and the effect of the insecticide measured against the clock in 2, 4, 8 and 16-minute lengths of time. It is only by experiments like these that the scientists can develop more powerful weapons against flies and other disease-carrying insects. In other tests, electrodes are injected into the body of the fly, one against the eye and the other against the body. This is to measure the reaction of the nervous system when insecticide is applied. The nervous reaction is measured on an oscilloscope. These are the weapons in a war against one of mankind's deadliest enemies. It is 10 minutes to 8 in the morning, any morning, and the man they called the big fella is on his way to work. The big fella, a former Premier of New South Wales, Jack Lang. And it's 10 to 8 in the morning, and he's arriving at work, and he's 91 years of age. The most controversial Premier Australia has ever seen. Twice Premier, the first time voted out of office by the people, the second time dismissed by the Governor, Sir Philip Game. Loved by some, even worshipped, hated by others, but he still has plenty of friends. In his days of power, he had plenty of enemies, and their antagonism ran deep. Remember the opening of Sydney's Harbour Bridge and the attempt by Captain de Groot of the New Guard to slash the ribbon and thwart the Premier? These are historic Cine Sound scenes. But the big fella opened the bridge, and then in 1932, Governor Game dismissed his government. Jack Lang entered Parliament in 1913, he became Treasurer in 1920 and Premier in 1925. He remembers well how he was voted out of office 2 years later, and what was to follow.
I was returned to power again in 1925, and my premiership lasted from 1925 to 1927. In that period, I was successful and very happy about the social legislation, child endowment. I made 44 hours by Act of Parliament that hasn't been altered ever since, and I got workers' compensation, got the government insurance office, and various other projects that were at the time were going to ruin this country and drive everybody to destruction, and today they're recognised all over Australia. The wheel of political fortune turned again, and in 1930 I was returned with a majority of the state parliament as Premier of New South Wales. In 1929, that awful depression had overtaken the world, and I came to office with an empty treasury and a wrecked community, a wrecked state, and I set about to see that the underdog was not punished this time as he was punishing before. I introduced the moratorium, saved the people's homes, their farms, their tools of trade that previously would have been taken entirely from them. I refused to destroy child endowment. I refused to destroy workers' compensation. I refused to rectify or to lessen the powers of the moratorium. I refuse to reduce wages and social services. And thus I was a wild man, a destroyer. And I'm sorry to say that today we're getting practically the same thing repeated. Overseas people are interfering and want to control because of our unable to get prices overseas. They want to control because of their external power. They want to control the internal economy of this our country, Australia. I hope.
A VIP jet from Melbourne lands at Fairbairn Air Base, Canberra, bringing the President of Nauru and his wife on an official visit. President Hamidou Robert is head of state for Nauru's 3,000 people, and on his official visit he's welcomed by the Governor-General, Lord Casey. The Prime Minister, Mr. Gorton, is here too. The 45-year-old president this year succeeded in winning Nauru's independence, and this is his first official visit since. His is the smallest democratic republic in the world, and as head of state, he receives a 21-gun salute from the Royal Military College, Duntroon. There's a 100-man Guard of Honour from the Royal Australian Air Force. Canberra turns on a VIP welcome for the President of independent Nauru. You'll remember little Miss Muffet, who was frightened away by a spider. Well, Robin Innes goes looking for them, and not just ordinary spiders. She's nursemaid to 450 funnel webs, and they're as deadly as they come. Robin works for Eric Worrell, who runs the Australian Reptile Park at Gosford. She collects some of the spiders herself, but the farm wants another 2,000 of them. You can get 20 cents each for them, but be careful. Their bite can easily kill. It's because they're so deadly that Robin has taken on this job. In a special laboratory at the farm, she milks the funnel webs to get their venom. And she has to clean the spiders' jars and feed them twice a week. Robin says the males are angrier than the females. The spiders are milked regularly. It's not an easy job. They have to be teased to get them to sit up, and an angry funnel web is not exactly the nicest pet to have around the house. It takes 4,000 to 5,000 milkings to get 1 gram of venom crystals. So far, no one has found an antidote to the funnel web's bite, but research is going on in Melbourne, and that's where this venom will be sent. There's not much of it, but it's deadly dangerous. After milking is over, the venom is placed in marked tubes and put away into cold storage, ready to be shipped to Melbourne. The spiders themselves must be kept in separate jars, otherwise they kill each other. A farm that keeps spiders, milking them in the search for an antidote to their deadly venom. Just 3 hours and 10 miles from Sydney by plane to Fiji, and then by a 60-year-old pleasure craft that was once a coal boat. And the journey is really worthwhile, for it's taking us from Lautoka to an island called Itai, Beachcomber Island. There's no TV, no phones, no electricity, but there is white sand, a coral lagoon, and palm trees. There's plenty of food too, and there are native-style feasts at which you're an honoured guest. Who wouldn't be a beachcomber if this is the way they live? There are only 3 huts on Itai Island, but who needs them anyway? Every day the tourists arrive, some in very casual dress, and go to look at the coral. The tourist boat has a glass bottom through which you can see the wonders of the world below the surface of the lagoon. The water is crystal clear, and the coral can be seen in all its beauty. If you want a closer look, Rupini will dive over and bring some to the surface. The beauty of a coral lagoon on Beachcomber Island. At Sydney Stadium, British Empire featherweight champion Johnny Famechon meets American Bobby Valdez in a fight billed for the vacant world featherweight title. It's a fight with plenty of action, and it's going to end with a shot. After some early sparring, both boxers step in fast. Famechon is boxing well, but Valdez is showing plenty of aggression. There's not much in it in the first few rounds, but then Famechon catches Valdez and the Empire champion's down. Not much damage done, though. Both men are scoring with solid lefts, but Famechon is making the American miss and is using the ring well. In the clinches, referee Patrick watches Valdez closely. He's already warned him for butting. At this stage, Valdez is behind on points, but he's still fighting strongly. Valdez is down again. Famechon is building up a good points lead. The Australian is boxing well now, countering the American's aggression. He's a clear leader on points, and Valdez is fighting desperately to recover lost ground. But in the 13th round, Valdez is disqualified. The crowd doesn't know what's happened until the ring announcer tells them. It's a sensational end to a fight that had only 2 rounds to go.
Arriving from Tokyo, where he won the Bantamweight Championship of the World, Lionel Rose returns to Australia. Accompanied by his trainer, Jack Rennie and Mrs. Rennie, Lionel has been away 2 weeks and is on his way home to Melbourne, where the warmest welcome ever given to a sportsman awaits him. An estimated crowd of 200,000 lines the route from Essendon Airport to the city. Lionel endeavours to protect his swollen right hand, injured in his points victory over Japan's Fighting Harada, but is almost overcome by the warmth of the reception. At Melbourne Town Hall, along with his family, the 20-year-old Rose, who started life in a 2-room shack in the Victorian country town of Druin, is tendered a civic reception. He's risen to the heights through great fistic skill displayed throughout the title bout. In the opening round, Harada's characteristic charge is anticipated by the Australian, who blocks many of the blows and, making full use of his marked height and reach advantage, counters effectively. Both slam away at the body as the bout continues at a furious pace. Harada is making the 5th defense of the title he won over 2 years ago, and although he's vastly more experienced than Rose, the challenger is calm under pressure, scoring many points with well-directed left hands. Although losing balance himself, Rose's explosive right hand to the jaw sends the champion down in the 9th for a compulsory 8 count. Harada seems to dispute the knockdown and quickly recovers. Persistently trying to get inside, Harada is matched at close quarters by his opponent as the pace shows no signs of slackening. There's many fierce exchanges as Harada strives to keep Rose within punching range, but the confident challenger stands his ground. It's the 15th and final round. Harada makes a desperate bid to save his title, pressing Rose to the ropes, but the Australian dances into the safer open spaces of the ring. Harada keeps throwing plenty of punches, but Rose is more accurate and seizes upon the slightest openings. Although living up to his nickname of Fighting Harada, the gallant champion is unable to upset the composure of Rose, who punches with him until the bell. The judges' scorecards are checked, and as the referee Toyama signals Rose the winner, he and Jack Rennie crash to the floor in excitement. Rose becomes only the 2nd Australian to take a world boxing crown and the 1st Aboriginal to win a world title. Modest and unassuming, Lionel Rose.
The 44,000-ton mothership Soviet Russia enters Sydney Harbour after 9 months at sea. The Russian whaling fleet has caught more than 3,300 whales and will take nearly 20,000 tons of oil back to Vladivostok. Outside the heads, the 20 1,000-ton hunters are waiting to enter port. They have to come in 3 relays because there aren't enough pilots to go round. The mothership carries a crew of 521, including 50 women. The small hunters each have a crew of 31. That's a total of nearly 1,200 Russian sailors, and they'll be here for 6 days. The men on board the whalers have about $250,000 in wages to spend, and after 9 months at sea, they're anxious to get ashore. Most of the women on board are married to members of the crew. A crowd of less than 18,000 sees Queensland kick off in the Rugby League match against New South Wales in Sydney. The home state attacks from the start. Watch Dick Thornett go. He's brought down but gets up again and dashes away until he's collared by Hall and Monty. Now Buman has it. He passes to Johnny Raper onto Dick Thornett, who's tackled by Denman. Wittenberg's at dummy half and sends to Smith, on to Branson, and then to Greaves, who's brought down. Queensland wins this scrum, and a long kick downfield is picked up by Johnny Greaves. He always looks dangerous, but Denman and Darling stop the attack. Not for long, New South Wales attacks again, and Pascoe flies for the line. It's the first of his 3 tries for the match. New South Wales is well in command now, and another try soon follows. Just watch this movement with Branson, Pascoe and Smith cutting right through the defence before Branson goes over in the corner. Graham Langlands converts and New South Wales goes further ahead. Queensland restarts play and the ball goes to Sadler, who's well held by John White. James at dummy half passes to Langlands and on to Greaves, who's tackled by Monty but manages to get the ball away to Rasmussen. New South Wales again looks dangerous, but Sadler loses possession and then bad handling by both teams stops the movement. A penalty gives Queensland relief and 2 greatly needed points. But New South Wales is in again as Sadler sends fullback Langlands across to win the match by 30 points to 7.
Australians Tony Roach and Rod Laver contest the first men's Open Wimbledon singles final, and amongst the capacity crowd is Princess Margaret. In devastating form, Laver dominates the match from the outset. It's the first left-handers final in 8 years, and Roach tries to keep the #1 seed away from the net. But with a perfectly controlled all-court game, Laver forces Roach into errors. A first-year professional, Roach is seeded 15th, and in his initial Wimbledon final, produces some of his best form to briefly stem Laver's tide. The Rockhampton Rocket is in command, and sweeping aside Roach's challenge takes the first 2 sets in 40 minutes. Laver to serve at match point. It's a great placement, and he wins in straight sets, 6-3, 6-4, 6-2, to take his 3rd Wimbledon title, which he'd also won as an amateur in 1961-62. Princess Marina presents the trophy to 29-year-old Laver, the universally acknowledged king of tennis, and who now goes into sporting history as the first professional to win the game's most coveted...
Squash is one of the toughest of all games, and when you're a champion, you have to keep fit. So Heather McKay spends plenty of time exercising off the court, and her fitness, quick reflexes and good eyesight have really paid off. She's been Australian champion for 8 years and world champion every year since 1962. Heather had had only 3 lessons when she won the Australian title the first time. Now she set a record unequalled by any other Australian sportswoman. At the Bellevue Hill squash courts, she practices with John Cheadle. He and Vince Napier were her coaches in her early days. With 3 days a week training and 4 days playing squash, the 26-year-old champion is a model of fitness and style. And because she's so far ahead of the rest of the field, she has to practice with men. Heather McKay won the Australian title at her first attempt and won the world title the first time she went overseas. She'd like to win the world title 3 more times to make it 10, a feat that's only been done once before. John Cheadle is an Australian men's championship title holder, but Heather keeps him moving all the time. Experts say she's one of the greatest players ever. Here comes the final point, and it goes to Heather McKay, the girl from Queen Beanne who's rewritten the record book, 7-time squash champion of the world.
The 1968 Sydney to Hobart Blue Water Classic got off to a thrilling start in perfect weather. The 67 yachts, the largest entry ever, made a grand picture as they began their 630-mile voyage to Hobart. Hundreds of small craft, both under sail and power, crowded Sydney Harbour to farewell the yachts as they raced towards the heads. Although Ondine was well back, the 73-foot Ketch soon began to whittle down the leeway. The other American entry, Rage, was close behind. Rage was first through the heads, a half a mile ahead of Coomaloo and Balandra. Ondine was 4th to clear the harbour. As the yachts sailed down the coast, they made a magnificent picture to begin the 24th Ocean Thriller. The first yacht to enter the Derwent was Ondine, skippered by Huey Long. With him was his 13-year-old son, Russell, youngest crewman ever to sail in the Ocean Classic. Mr. Long said, "We sailed Ondine flat out all the way." Ondine first to cross the line and gain line honours. Following up the Derwent was Ragamuffin, the 48-foot Sydney sloop. Ragamuffin made a fine picture as she drew near to the finishing line in Hobart. The line honours win for Ondine too kept her unbeaten record intact, and she's now been the first yacht home in 4 of the world's major ocean races. Although Ragamuffin was second, it was Coomaloo, 5th over the line, that became the provisional handicap winner, owned and skippered by Dennis O'Neill of Sydney. Huey Long, with his son Russell, is looking forward to making it another first in the 1969 Blue Water Classic.